Hey everybody, good morning. I want to tell you my top 10 for Mounce chapters 1 and 2 in this video. I'm also going to put up a video transcript. For each chapter in Mounce, I'm going to try to give you a top 10, and is my top 10 for both chapters put together, chapters 1 and 2. First of all, number 1. Chapter 1, note the big time span between the origins of Greek in 1300 BC, Classical Greek 800 to 400 BC, and the time of Alexander the Great, who lived from 356 to 323. That's a lot of history from 1300 down to 323 BC. Greek changed a lot during those centuries and that time. But with the conquest of Alexander the Great, which really united parts of the ancient world that had never been united before, Greek needed to be simplified so that it could become a common language throughout the Greek Empire, Alexander's empire. And so was created the language that we know as Koine, or Common Greek. That was purposely simplified Greek for use through the empire of Alexander the Great. And eventually you know that that empire became the Empire of Rome, the Roman Empire, and that's how we get to the language of the New Testament, which is a form of Koine Greek. You might think about, if you're an English speaker, the distance between the King James Version of the Bible in 1611 and the Common English Bible in 2011. 400 years, big changes in English. In a similar way, but perhaps not quite as large or extensive a way, Greek changed from the time that we know it in its earliest form around 1300 BC until it became Koine Greek during the time and after the time of Alexander the Great's empire. So that's what I'd like you to get from chapter 1. That's the only point in my top 10 for chapter 1 in Mounce. Let's move on to chapter 2. Look with me at 2.1. That section talks about transliteration, which is taking one letter from an ancient language and finding an equivalent letter in another language. That's important to know, the definition of transliteration. 2.2, the alphabet. You need to know each letter symbol, each name, each letter name, each transliteration, each letter's transliteration, and each sound, each letter's sound. You need to be able to know all of those things, and you need to be able to move through the alphabet alphabetically, because you need to be able to use a Greek lexicon or dictionary quickly. Helps for learning the alphabet and other resources for this chapter and every chapter in Mounce can be found at www.billmounce.com/resources. That link is contained in the transcript for this video. When you get to that page down on that page until you see more free stuff, the Greek alphabet. The next point I want to draw out for you in my top 10 is found at 2.4 in chapter 2. It tells you that sigma can be written in two ways. You won't miss either one of them. You'll memorize the form that sigma takes in almost every case, but there is something called a final sigma. You won't miss it because it looks like an S in English. Let's go next to 2.5, which talks about upsilon, the Greek letter upsilon. It gets translated two ways. It's not really important to know that unless you want to move back from an English transliteration to the actual Greek letters, and you'll be able to do that with your software. So not a very important one to include, but I've put it in my top 10. Move next to 2.9. In 2.9, Mounce is talking about the differences between speaking modern Greek and pronouncing Koine Greek. You can find online sites that will teach you modern Greek and even teach you how to use it to study the Greek New Testament, how to read the Greek New Testament with modern Greek pronunciation. But most New Testament people still use what's called Erasmian Greek or Erasmian pronunciation. That name, Erasmian, it comes from the proper name Erasmus. Erasmus was a scholar who helped bring Europe out of the Dark Ages during the Renaissance by reviving the use of ancient Greek and Koine Greek. Erasmus did this around the year 1500 AD, and that's why this form of pronunciation that's used by most commentators and most New Testament scholars and most New Testament teachers is called Erasmian pronunciation. Move next with me to 2.10, and that tells you that gamma is pronounced two ways. And this is important because you'll be pronouncing a single gamma like the letter G in English, but when two gammas come together, they're pronounced like an NG in English. Move next to 2.12. This talks about iota and something called a subscript iota. That means an iota that gets written below a line. Iota sometimes gets written below a line. When it does, though, it's not pronounced, so it's only important to recognize what's going on and really not very important, but I've included it in my top 10. Next, move down with me to 2.13. That talks about capital letters. There is no need to memorize capital letters and what they look like right now. They're not used very frequently in the Greek New Testament. You can always go back and learn them later on. And finally, move with me to 2.14. And what I want to tell you there is that whenever Mounce refers to Technia or technia.com, he's referring to his old online website and everything that was there. And everything that was there is now at his new website, which is www.billmounce.com. And that's important to know because there are a ton of resources at billmounce.com. And when you get to the main page, billmounce.com, be sure and notice the three bars on the upper right and click on those, and you'll see a list of what's available for our book, Bible Study Greek, Greek for the Rest of Us. And in regards to that site, I encourage you to make good use of it. There are a lot of materials there. I'm not going to take time to work through all of them with you, but if you have any questions about the site, please do feel free to write me. I know this site pretty well. That's it for Chapter 2, and if you're keeping track with me, I've only given you a top 9 because I can only find a top 9, and I hope you're smiling about that along with me. I'll visit with you next about Mounce Chapter 3 in my next video.